Serve DC's collaborative partner on this initiative. We are excited that you've chosen to join us today for our very first session, Stepping Up During a Crisis, Navigating Needs, Networks, and Next Steps. Today, Serve DC is launching this timely series of 4 virtual convenings to support DC's nonprofits. These sessions will highlight local and national thought leaders who will discuss critical infrastructure needs to assist in rebuilding DC's nonprofit sector to be strong, sustainable, and racially just. The goals of our Ready for Recovery series are to help participants collaborate on partnerships to leverage resources, message the community's needs and impact, confront internal and external unconscious biases, and how to best position to advocate for equitable funding. I'm sure we all understand we are living in unprecedented times during this global pandemic and civil unrest. The toll of this crisis impacts all of us, both professionally and personally. And we appreciate your commitment to continue fighting the good fight of faith with hope that one day we will recover. A few housekeeping tips before we officially begin. Live closed captioning is available during our session. To view closed captioning in full screen or a large font format during this session, please copy and paste the closed caption link provided at the top of the chat. And please don't forget to remain on mute. If there's anyone that is not on mute at this time, please put all phones and computers on mute to avoid any background noise that may cause a distraction. Use the chat group as a parking lot to ask any questions, and we will do our best to get to everyone's questions by the end of today's sessions. And finally, please don't forget to fill out the survey after today's webinar. And if I could have a plug for a moment, when you get the survey, please don't forget to also fill out the U.S. Census Bureau for the U.S. Census, for 2020. Today, we have 90 minutes of a power-packed agenda, and it is our hope you will walk away with new tools and resources to help you serve DC. First, you will hear welcome remarks from our city's Chief Service Officer, Director Aris T. Scales, who will share with you all things new, better, and different within Serve DC, and why this series is so critical to our collective recovery. Followed by Director Skills, maybe she is going to be a doctor one day. Followed by Director Skills, we will have a moderated discussion with some passionate and knowledgeable community leaders, advocates, educators, and change agents, followed by a 10-minute Q&A from the audience. Next, we will engage in a one-on-one discussion with Mark Boyd, who I'm really excited to hear from Team Rubicon's DC State Administrator and Northeast Deputy Planning Lead for FEMA, and of course, our very own Serve DC's Deputy Director of Partnerships and Engagement, Alexis Squire. And lastly, Deputy Director Squire will provide closing remarks and highlight upcoming events and initiatives from Serve DC. We appreciate your time, and we hope you will walk away today inspired, encouraged, and ready for recovery. I would also be remiss if I didn't thank our key coordinator for today, Whitney. Many of you have probably spoken to Whitney, and we would like to thank her for all of the hard work that she's done in putting this together. Now let's get started. We are delighted to hear from Serve DC's fearless leader and Chief Service Officer, my sister, my friend, Aris T. Skills. She is dedicated to promoting service and strategic partnerships as an innovative and sustainable solution to today's social challenges. Director Skills is a tri-sector leader with a knack for quickly assessing structural challenges and navigating organizations through periods of rapid change, realignment, and operational expansion. Her record of weaving public-private partnerships has positioned her to raise over $50 million and award over $100 million in grants and subsidies for underinvested communities in Savannah, Atlanta, Chicago, and DC. In 2018, Aris was appointed by DC Mayor Muriel Bowser to lead public-private partnerships and has formally served as the Chief Service Officer for the District of Columbia since 2019. In this capacity, she leads Serve DC, the Mayor's Office on Volunteerism and Partnerships, coordinating multi-sector relationships and citywide service initiatives to amplify civic engagement. Aris is active in the community. You will always find her serving with style and flair, and serves as an advisory council member for both Wells Fargo, Where We Live, and Lift City Works initiatives. She is also the chartering president of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women of the Metropolitan Washington, D.C. chapter. Her previous roles include Vice President of Economic Growth and Jobs for World Business Chicago and Executive Director of the DC Promise Neighborhood Initiative. She has been a featured speaker and panelist for a variety of influential organizations and has spoken even in the United Kingdom. On a personal note, Aris is much more than this bio. Aris is a dynamic leader. She leads with conviction, and it is truly an honor to serve with her on this initiative. Without further ado, I welcome Director Skills.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I am so excited and thrilled to be here this morning. Before I say anything, I have to make sure that I get my thank yous and my acknowledgements out the way, because I get so excited. I just jump into remarks, I jump into the work, and I can sometimes forget to just say thank you. So I want to make sure that I give a great shout out to our amazing team who's been working so diligently to make sure that we pull this together for you all. I want to say thank you to Mayor Bowser for allowing me this platform and this opportunity to serve as the Chief Service Officer, and to Good Insight for stepping up and being a strong thought partner and a strong collaborator with us as we took this idea and this concept to make it a reality. Today, we are here really to make sure that we are amplifying and modeling the mission of Serve DC. We understand the importance, we understand the value of having strong collaboration, of having strong partners who can come together collectively to serve and to respond and support our community. And so when COVID hit, we realized that this was not about us jumping out there to be responsive. We wanted to make sure that we could step back, that we could assess what was happening, understand the landscape, hear directly from our stakeholders about the challenges and issues and concerns that they had, and really put together something thoughtful, something ongoing, and something engaging that allows us to prepare for recovery. Now, when we think about recovery, that is a word that is synonymous, right, with resilience. It's a word that is synonymous with rebounding. It is a word that you think about, how do you come back? And while we do not know exactly when or exactly how our comeback will look, right, post-COVID, what we know is we have an opportunity right now to lean in, to step up at every single level, to make sure that we are taking care of our own, that we are building relationships, that we are leveraging resources, and that we're connecting to networks that allow us to serve our communities in a myriad of ways, whether we're volunteering, whether we're nonprofits, whether we're in the philanthropic space. There is a place for each of us to step up and serve, to respond to our social issues, and to make sure that we are, again, taking care of our own. And so while government alone cannot address all of our issues, we definitely want to make sure that we have a government, that we have an administration, that we have leaders who are responsive, who are aware, and who are in tune and supportive of the things that we need to do to make sure that our communities are resilient, that they're vibrant, and that they're equitable. And so as we go through the Ready for Recovery series, and as we talk about how we can step up and serve and step up and lead, that is the lens in which we are looking to bring this conversation, the lens in which we are looking to bring this information, and the lens in which we are looking to connect with you. So I am thrilled that you have taken the time today to join us. I know we're in this virtual world where we're spending day in and day out on Zooms and WebExes and Facebook Lives and all these different modes and mediums. But the fact that you are joining us today says that you find value in what we bring, and we find value in you. So with that, I would like to turn this over back to Isha so that we can start with our amazing panel. And I am so thrilled to have our moderator today be one of our commissioners who's been at the forefront, at my side, at our agency side, a strong advocate of the work that we do to make sure that our community members are equipped to respond. So thank you so much, Commissioner Williams, for also stepping up to serve today. And so continue to follow us, continue to support us. And this is part of our extension in celebrating our 20th anniversary. So we have lots of work to do, and we cannot do it without you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charisse. It is now time for our esteemed panel. I know that Charisse and I both have said a lot, but I am really excited to hear from our very own commissioner. Over the last few weeks, I've had the pleasure to work with her preparing for this session. And I must say, you can learn a lot about a person running into technical assistance issues. What I've learned about our moderator today is that she is extremely patient, pleasant, and understanding. Perhaps these are just some of the traits that made her an effective commissioner. Today, it is my honor to introduce Commissioner Charisse Williams, who will introduce our panel of experts and immediately dive into this robust discussion. Everybody's a doctor today. Commissioner Williams is a lifelong Washingtonian educator, community service advocate, and entrepreneur. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Townsend University. After graduation, she worked several years as an educational consultant, receiving awards for her innovative programs implemented in both public and private schools. Charisse took some of those ideas and innovations that she implemented in schools and transitioned to the Welfare to Work program. Her success is not alone. She has continued to do the work in her community alongside her family, and she was appointed as a commissioner and sworn in by Mayor Muriel Bowser in 2017. Commissioner Williams now serves on the Commission for the Mayor's Office of Volunteerism and Partnership, Serve DC. Her role as a commissioner is an advisory role, which helps direct policy by making suggestions and recommendations as it relates to emergency preparedness, national service, district donation management, and grant services. Doctor, why do I see everybody's going to be a doctor by the end of this program? So Commissioner Williams has participated in many community involvement activities in all 8 wards. She is not a stranger to the community of DC, and she is no stranger to Serve DC. We now welcome Commissioner Charisse Williams as our moderator.
Good morning. How is everyone? Wonderful. I would like to take this time to thank Isha for that wonderful introduction. On behalf of Serve DC, I welcome everyone to our Ready for Recovery session. You know, I have a question for everyone, something that I need for you all to take back and think about and do in your community. Are you ready to serve? Especially during this COVID crisis. I can tell you honestly that these three panelists have stepped up, stepped out into their communities, and have made the commitment to work and serve. We're going to go ahead and start with our panelists. Samantha Davis. Samantha is the founder and executive director of Black Swan Academy. She is an advocate, a trainer, organizer, and an optimist. She believes that everyone has an innate ability to succeed, but they must be given the opportunity to do so. At the age of 25, Samantha founded the Black Swan Academy to create a pipeline for Black youth to serve in civic leadership. She also created a Black Women's Girls Advocate Program, a self-development of people national committee for the Presbyterian Church. She has also worked diligently and engaged as a manager for the YWCA, where she has developed initiatives and nationwide voting registration efforts. And she also mobilized 200 associations to do racial and gender justice work. She works tirelessly and has been recognized by American University, Pittsburgh Public Schools, the Boys and Girls Club of Washington, D.C., the National Urban League, and most recently, Essence 2019 Walk 100. Our second panelist, Sharon Wise. She is a motivational speaker, national and international artist. She has also worked as a filmmaker, and she wants to share on a tireless basis her journey of addiction, community leadership, and organizational skills. She has assisted in social policies, changing laws to being an example of the. She operates Round Midnight. This is a homeless outreach program here in the district. She is a certified whole health, peer service, COVID-19 educator and facilitator, as well as a Cert member. She is the recipient of several awards. The first award is the 2009 Joy Evans Award, and that's for community service. She is also the recipient of the Martin Luther King Jr. Award, also for community service. 2011 Crisis Intervention Team Consumer Leadership Award. 2012 National Council of Awards and Contributions to the Arts. 2013 Community Service Awards for Leadership, and last but not least, 2016 Charles Willis Award. Our last panelist, Prem Kumar Jati. He is a community emergency preparedness coordinator and specialist for Serve DC. In his position, he oversees several programs, such as training volunteers, agencies, schools, and community groups. He teaches disaster preparedness, fire safety, light search and rescue, CERT organizations, disaster psychology, and terrorism awareness. Prem also coordinated and facilitated the program this past summer, Summer Youth Emergency Preparedness Academy. This program prepares our youth to be a part of a career that specializes in emergency preparedness. Let's go ahead and now start with our panel discussion. We're going to start with Samantha. Samantha, Can you tell me what are the 3 pressing community needs of your organization that you face on a day-to-day basis during this COVID public health crisis? And also, my second question to you is, how have you been able to address them?
Sure, and thank you all so much for inviting me to this platform. I do want to acknowledge there was DC Mutual Aid Network listed on my slide. Black Swan Academy is a member of the DC Mutual Aid Network. I am not the executive director of it, and I am going to be speaking on behalf of Black Swan Academy, not the Mutual Aid Network, but we'll share those experiences as well. So in our role of Black Swan Academy, immediately when COVID-19 struck and the schools closed in particular, we saw a great demand for all of the social issues and social needs that we know have already been lacking in this city, from housing to healthcare to childcare, food, transportation, education, certainly, and access to technology. Excuse me, I have an angry barking dog that might be interrupting at some point. And so for us, what we did, and actually, let me see. One of the problems with COVID-19, right, and working from home, I don't know if I can get him quiet in this moment, so it might be best to go to the next person and ask their question, and I'll get him quiet and jump back.
That's fine. We will come back to you shortly. Sharon, hello there.
Hello.
I also have several questions for you. In your experience, what are some of the challenges that your volunteers have faced on the front line?
Well, some of the challenges that our volunteers have faced on the front line has been making sure they can get to locations and making sure that they are emotionally prepared for what they see when they get to the locations. I do a lot of different types of volunteering, and with Cert DC, I've had the opportunity to do from natural disasters to when there's been a shooting in the district. And sometimes the volunteers, we don't necessarily understand what we're going to see when we get there. And so with trauma, and me being a trauma expert, I go all over the world teaching about trauma-informed care, the vicarious trauma, you know, the witnessing of what we're seeing in our community. Sometimes that affects the volunteers, and then it enables their ability to be effective when they are out there serving. But on the other hand, it's like CERT has been very good at us, like training while in action, if you will, which is a benefit to the volunteer, that you may not have experienced doing something or being involved in something by volunteering, but then you learn from each other when we're on the ground, and it's actually learning while it's in action.
Wonderful. So we know that you are a CERT member. Can you tell us a little bit about what you have participated in and what you continue to plan to do as a CERT member?
As a CERT member, first of all, I'm very excited. I've been a CERT member for 10 years. I got trained under Shirley Hall, and I don't know if Ms. Hall is even still around. But as a direct result of me getting involved with CERT early on, I wanted to learn more. And so I then went back to school. I have my master's degree now. I know how to clean up an oil spill. I know how to prepare an incident command center. I brought others in. I've been very effective with being able to do things in my community that I wouldn't ordinarily be able to do. That spent off, and I started to install solar panels and start getting involved with renewable energy, because sometimes you may not have access to an electricity grid. I now know how to make fire. And all of that came because I got involved with CERT. So what happens is that you end up being catapulted to another level of consciousness about getting involved with volunteering. But then it's the things that you learn while you're volunteering that you can then sow into your community as a direct result of just being a volunteer. So I encourage everyone, anyone on the call right now, get involved with CERT. I'm not tooting their horn, but I'm telling you, my entire life has been changed as a direct result of me being involved with CERT.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Samantha, thank you for your time and patience. We're going to come right back to you now. I'm going to repeat the question to you again. And this is going to be a two-part question. What are the three pressing community needs of your organization that has faced as it relates to the COVID-19 crisis? And the second question is, how have you been able to address them?
Yes, thank you all for your flexibility. My dog is quiet for the moment. So I would say, I was mentioning all of the various social issues that our organization tends to grapple with and do advocacy around. And so since the beginning of COVID-19, we saw a need around access extremely broadly, specifically around groceries, around medication, and around technology. And so those were the three areas that we jumped in to support in. We have been able to support through the DC Mutual Aid Network, as well as through the Black Swan Academy, doing deliveries to school sites, mostly Ward 7 and Ward 8, doing drop-offs for youth leaders throughout the city and ensuring their families have what they need throughout the months, as well as trying to fill the gap that the government has yet to be able to meet around access to technology by distributing laptops and equipment to families, both before the school year ended, as well as we're preparing for this next school year. Through the DC Mutual Aid Network, which is a network of mostly grassroots groups throughout the city, in Ward 7 and Ward 8 alone, through a mutual aid hotline, we have officially been able to deliver over 5,000 deliveries to community members in Ward 7 and Ward 8, over 100,000 hot meals. We've given about 5,000 toiletry kits, both through our school sites as well as through outreach events in neighborhoods and communities in Ward 7 and Ward 8. And all of that work has been done because our community members have stepped up. Our community saw a need and a lack of infrastructure and pulled together through donations, through time and resources to ensure that we were able to do what we needed to do to keep each other safe. And all of this has been done through the willpower of individuals and some support, some small support from the philanthropic sector.
Wonderful. Samantha, can anyone be a part of this volunteer team for Ward 4 Mutual? And how can we get information? Is there a hotline number? Is there a website that we can attach ourselves to, and also to be able to support you?
Absolutely. So anyone can sign up to volunteer. We do have a process to verify and go through some security process to ensure everyone has the skills that they need to participate and engage. But sure, everyone can absolutely sign up. I can share the link. There is not a website. Folks can email me directly if they're interested in engaging in the Mutual Aid Network. There is a Facebook group called DC Mutual Aid Network where they can message the administrators directly. And my email address is sdavis@blackswanacademy.org. And this is citywide. And then our teams are divvied up via ward, essentially.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that information. Prim, good morning. It is your turn now. I have a three-part question just for you. Okay. Please share with us, first of all, how the Cert team program works and the network that you do along with your training, and then also the role of a Cert member.
Awesome, thank you. So we're going to be using the term Cert quite often, and I just want to break that term down a little bit. It stands for Community Emergency Response Team. So when I interchange between Cert and Community Emergency Response Team, we're basically speaking the same language here. And I'm very happy to for Sharon to really echo the sentiment of Cert and what it's really intended for at the grassroots level in the community for resiliency and for residents And I often say start with a unit of 1 and then expand from there. But when we here at the DC Cert here, we continue to build community resiliency through training and through radical inclusion. We wanted to make sure that we reach all the demographic in the community, and we wanted to make sure we are able to penetrate our training at every corner of the district. We have adapted to the current environment by adjusting our training posture and have transitioned to an online hybrid platform to continue our training. We work with volunteers. Cert volunteers are aimed to provide them with training and equip them with the understanding of how to prepare in the event there is a disaster in their community, how they'll prepare, how they'll respond, and the action that they will take. The goal for Cert members is to be familiar with those threats that are most susceptible to the community. Here in DC, we're more affected by thunderstorms, heavy rainfall, flash flooding. As we have seen it as we're driving through areas in Rock Creek Park, we kind of like experience the impact of that area there. So that's kind of like we want to talk about more. What are more likely to happen in your jurisdiction, in your area? So by Cert offering these consistent nationwide approach to training, we wanted to make sure that our organization and first responders are able to recognize us as an asset or as a resource so they could use us to fill their little needs while they're responding to bigger things in the event where a disaster or event exceeds their capacity to respond. Cert is not the only way for residents to engage in the district here. The district also uses Cert as a resource. Like I mentioned earlier, in the event of a large-scale disaster, when the district response capability is exhausted, Cert comes in and fills that lower need, the community-level need, where you take care of yourself first, then your family members, and then you go out from there. Cert is basically the local and state solution to major difficult problems. We are basically the fix for anything at the local and jurisdictional level. We have to acknowledge that when an emergency happens, it affects everyone in that area, in that impact zone. So the idea that, or the notion that we wanted to make sure that we push this training to everyone, we get everyone involved in the training is important, because we at some point or the other, like Sharon mentioned earlier, we may need this training here. So we wanted to make sure that it's out there, people to get part of it. And I'll encourage you to, join your, reach out to us at dc.cert, dc.gov for more information. Join the next training, take the next training, join your Cert group, find out whichever Cert group is in your jurisdiction, get on board with that there. Because we have to understand, as Samantha had mentioned some time ago, that to build community, we have to be part of that community. And that's kind of like what Cert built off of. We wanted to make sure that we're including people, and not just including people, but radically including people, reaching out to the demographic, reaching out to different sector of the population, and ensuring that we are engaging with them and providing them with this much needed training. Because we have to understand, as I think Samantha, Sharon had echoed this earlier, resiliency really does start with you. And the Cert program creates that pathway and that pipeline between you and resiliency.
Thank you so much, Prim. I have to say that I have learned so much through Serve DC, as well as being on the Cert team for Washington, DC. And I will continue to support you and others as we continue to go through this pandemic. Samantha, I have another question for you. This is only a one-part question. I would like for you to speak briefly about your scholars and how you motivate and encourage them to do what needs to be done during what we call this new norm.
Absolutely. Our youth leaders are extraordinary and never cease to amaze me. What we have done during this time is switch completely virtually. And so we've been trying to step up our skills and our understanding of how to engage young people and people in general virtually in a digital format. and have been trying to also really rely on those individual relationships and connections with young people. And so most of our time outside of our sessions is spent doing one-on-one calls with our young people, checking in. How was your day? How are you doing? How are you feeling? What's your family experiencing during this time? What is it that you need? What is it that you want to do? But really looking at young people as the humans that they are, and trying to approach our work through a holistic lens, meeting them where they are, trying to be as engaging as possible in the curriculum and the content that we deliver. And then also, I think the biggest part for us is simply believing in their abilities and what they say that they need and what they say the issues are that they're experiencing, and creating platforms for them to step up and to speak out and to get involved. And so we've been doing that through mutual aid. We've been doing that through our ongoing advocacy and organizing work, pushing our city council and our mayor to address the concerns of Black youth in this city. And we've also been doing that by engaging young people in voter registration and census work. There are so many ways and so many opportunities that we can give our young people, and all it takes, in our opinion, is for us to start by centering their voices, their experiences, their solutions, and then creating the opportunities for them to apply those things.
Excellent. Thank you so much for all of your diligent work that you do on a day-to-day basis with our youth. Sharon, same question to you. How are you engaging the youth in your ward to do what can be done to help prepare and to also assist with the community as it relates to the COVID?
That's a really good question. And being an artist and a filmmaker, most of what I do in my life is always centered around resiliency. And because sometimes in this particular time, as well as what I talked about earlier with vicarious trauma, and sometimes you just lose your words and you just don't have the words to describe what you're going through. So I use art, and I use the space that I have here at my home, my yard, my backyard, the side of our property, to do art workshops, to do things where young people can express themselves through the medium of poetry, spoken word, journaling. I do paint and sips, but we have apple cider, to get them talking, and sometimes you got to feed them, and I find myself incurring a lot of extra children, and I only really have 2. So that's basically what I do. I'm very creative, and so therefore I have to be creative in my approach on how to reach my community. And I live in Ward 8 between 2 homeless shelters, so I have a volume of families to work with. All I have to do right now, I can keep it on camera, is set a couple tables up out in my yard, and before you know it, there'll be 5 or 6 or 7 kids there looking for something to do. And I think that as a community, which is a compound word, community, we have to start being very innovative in our approach during this time by taking whatever resources we got, because the government is struggling too, trying to keep up with making sure we have what we need and the community have what they need. We have culpability in that too, which is once again going back to my experience with Cert, has taught me to think outside of the box when I'm serving our youth. So I could be teaching them voter registration through poetry. I could be teaching them, cleaning up the community by doing a neighborhood cleanup, and then we have pizza that we have made in my house. It's things that you have to do outside the box, and it's not very comfortable, but I do it because my life depends on it, so.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Those are so many encouraging words that we can always live by, and also to teach our young people. Prim, can you tell us, since you've had your last graduating class, what are some of the graduates doing in their community, and also how can they engage more individuals in their community, i.e. the youth, to become Cert members?
Thank you. We have had 4 Cert members from the class of February 2020. deployed in Michigan and the state of Iowa under the State Service Commission there. But they haven't deployed under the DC Cert, but they have taken the DC Cert training, because I often say that everyone is a volunteer, but but not everyone is a Cert member. And Cert member does fill that cusp of both volunteer and a responder, a community aspect of responder. And so what they have done, they have taken their training to Michigan and to Iowa, and they have worked with local jurisdiction there to manage the food bank, to manage the phone bank in the smaller area. Some of them have who have taken the emergency response class and are emergency responders. Assist with the ambulance run in those areas as well. So they have taken their training and they have gone in areas to keep pushing what they have done and build on what they have taken. Because one of the things that we do with Cert, while the Cert training is a foundational training, we continue by doing up training and retraining to ensure that the skills you have got are sharpened and are always in your front pocket to be used whenever the time is needed. Because we have to remember that in as much as we may not need the skills today, we will need it at a certain point. And so we are literally the help until that help gets to us. And we are the connection between the point of impact and the point of response. And so we hold that line. And that's kind of like the important part of the training. And in terms of the youth, there are a lot of ways we can engage with the youth. This summer here, we have just graduated 25 youth from the Summer Youth Emergency Preparedness Academy, SYEP, a partnership program with DOES, Department of Employment Services. And we have managed to work with youth, providing them, expose them to the different facets of emergency preparedness, exposing them to the area that emergency management and emergency preparedness is way beyond police and EMS and fire. There are a lot of supporting structure that are out there. And so the program tried to create a pathway and a pipeline between high school and college, between I don't know what I want to do and what I want to do. And so that is the focus there, and that's the way we're going to keep engaging with youth, by providing pathway and pipeline, connecting them to their purpose.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you again, Prim, for giving us so much valuable information about how we can engage our youth and also to have them to participate in becoming future leaders. Samantha, this question is for you now. Can you tell us how technology has assisted you and your organization during this crisis, and how has the power of technology moved you forward?
Yeah, we've been completely reliant on technology during this crisis. I will say, though, that the reliance of technology has actually been a huge barrier and hurdle for us as an organization, and I would say for many of the communities we serve, where the reality is for many Black, Brown, Indigenous, low-income people in DC, there is limited infrastructure and lack of access to technology and internet service. And so we have relied on it. It has allowed us to connect with each other. It has allowed us to continue to be in relationship with each other. And it has also, at the same time, I have to acknowledge that it has also, in ways, disconnected us from the most marginalized and caused significant barriers to people to access the resources that they need to be able to fully engage in school, to be able to fully engage in various extracurricular and community-based efforts. And so I think it goes both hands. Technology is needed. It has allowed us to continue to be in relationship. And the truth is, many of the most marginalized in this city are still lacking the proper technology that they need.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Now, do you have equipment at your disposal to be able to use and to help engage your youth at Black Swan?
Yeah, so Black Swan Academy has been doing some fundraising to be able to get laptops and different equipments and hotspots to circulate to our staff as well as to our youth who have not received them yet from their schools. And so we are constantly, us and some other organizations are constantly looking for more equipment, looking for donations of laptops and equipment so that we can distribute that to the households who have yet to be met.
All right, wonderful. Sharon, can you tell me what type of leverages have you used to strengthen and recover through this pandemic?
The leverage that I use is the community's resiliency. What I learned in my community, as well as communities around the world, is that you will be surprised what you can do when you're in a crisis. And if you think about the work that our mayor is doing with 100 cities and C40, these organizations are all about how quickly do you recover when something happens. I grew up in a crisis, in foster care and then the jails, institutions, and drug addictions and some of those other things that kept me in bondage. So I have, just for me, a different level of responding to crisis very quickly when I find myself in them. But the other part of that is the community that uses my service. I do not let them off the hook. And a lot of the kids that come and do workshops with me, or when I go out and do workshops or speaking about trauma to police officers or prosecutors, they support what I do because they're the ones that use it. We call it self-supporting through your own contributions, and so therefore it never runs out because your sustainability plan is you bring a loaf of bread, you bring some bologna, somebody else brings some sodas, and we're gonna have us a little picnic going on, right? And I think that we've gotten away from community resiliency and we kind of made people, it's like learn helplessness. We've taught people how to be helpless, and in my experience is that I come into the situation letting people know, we're not charging for our service, but we got a little bucket over there, put a quarter or a nickel, a dime in there, or next time you come, bring a pack of cookies or something, and the community responds. Yes, I need grants. Yes, I need funding. But in the meantime, I sell my art, I show films, for a dime, or put on some variety shows in my backyard for $1. I do what I have to do to keep it going. And I've been around 17 years with Around Midnight, my homeless outreach, and we don't get grants. The community supports it. They're the ones that use it.
Thank you for sharing that information with us. And I'm sure that the persons on this call will be happy to not only assist, but engage in all of your programs. Prim, can you tell us the age of all of the students who participated in this last summer program? And also, can you also tell us about the youth? Did they take their information and stride back to their communities? And have you seen or heard from them to tell you what they've been doing?
Awesome. This last year, we have started with 45 participants, and we've concluded with 30 participants. That was a pretty good success for us. This year, we started with 25. We finished strong with 24, actually. One of them fell out and had to get a job offer, which was the intended purpose of the program. So we kind of count that as a success as well. So they have kind of moved on. But last year, one of the success story, and it's one of the biggest success story since I've joined the program and co-lead with Adriana, my colleague. Last year, we had a participant, a young man from Ward 7, join the program. I'm not sure what he wanted to do, and we were talking. And so, as I mentioned, we exposed them to the different facets of emergency preparedness and management. And one of those facets were the EMS and fire. And when we got to the EMS, the Fire Academy, and I think it was Chief Hawkins that actually did the introduction with us, and he was so moved by the talk that he's like, I want to become a firefighter. And we made the connection, say, hey, we have one person, they were interested in becoming a firefighter. They reached out, made the connection, and we kind of lost touch a little bit. And one day, my colleague and Adrienne and I, we were in Anthony as well. We were in Ward 8 doing an outreach, and we've heard the fire truck stopped, somebody jumped out, and guess who it was? That young man. Not only did he got into the Fire Academy, but he's almost about to graduate from the Fire Academy. And so those are the success stories we talk about. We had one young lady who works in a supermarket. She took the Stop the Bleed course that we offer in that training, went back to work one day, a customer fell, hit his head, started to bleed. She took charge of the scene, able to control the bleeding from that customer before the paramedic could have get to the scene. So when we talk about the kind of training that we instill in young people, we treat them as adults as well, because when an incident happens, when something happened in their community, when anything that, in fact, when they're responding as an adult. They're taking the action that adults will take. So when we approach youth in particular, we approach them with the seriousness of what we're talking about, because they take it serious as well. And so we're very excited about that program, and I'm looking forward for next year on that as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, panelists. We thoroughly enjoyed all of the information that you have given to us, and we're definitely hoping moving forward that we'll be able to assist you in all of your endeavors. We will definitely be putting information out for those who have been on the call today on how they can continue to support as well as contact you. We thank you again so much for this time, and we're going to move now into the next section.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, for that very informed panel. Thank you so much, Samantha, Sharon, and Prim, for all that you guys have done during the last few weeks and for sharing all of your expertise with us today. If you have any knowledge or resources that you would like to share with our audience, please don't forget to send it to us. And for those who are listening in, we will send it out to everyone that registered with Eventbrite. Moving forward, this is actually a part of the program I am very excited about. I'm excited because honestly, I didn't know these two individuals before the session, but when you meet people and you know that they are passionate about the work that they've done, despite all that they have going on, you know that they are people that you should listen to and try to model after in your own service. And so when I first spoke to Mark Boyd, I was immediately drawn to his energy and his enthusiasm. And then when I read his bio, I felt like I'm not doing too much with my life right now. And so Mark has definitely inspired me. And of course, Alexis Squire, who is our deputy director, she will also be joining us with this one-on-one. Alexis is the deputy director at Serve DC. And in this role, she does, I will say, everything. And she has been an amazing partner. She is a mother and also a wife of two amazing children and a husband. And we are excited to hear from her today. I'll tell you briefly about Mark. Mark is a dynamic leader. He's the state administrator for Team Rubicon in Washington, D.C., and he manages nearly 900 volunteers. I can barely manage my household, and he manages 900 volunteers. He is passionate, and he's also the deputy planning lead for Team Rubicon's Northeast Territory, responsible for leading disaster response and planning. He is also a Navy man, as my heart, and he has had over 30 years in the U.S. military. Without further ado, we would like to introduce Alexis and Mark Boyd.
Hello, good afternoon. I think it's officially the 12 o'clock mark. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and I'm excited to have this conversation with Mark. So I will just jump right on in. Mark, so tell us a little bit. We heard the bio. Thank you, Isha, for sharing. But Mark, tell us a little bit about beyond the bio, the good stuff. How did you land in this role, and what aligned you in your personal life to really serve in the way that you do?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the introduction and for the opportunity to talk about something that I've become passionate about over the last year and a half or so, Team Rubicon. Again, it's a great opportunity to support our DC VOAD, support our DC community, especially in times of disaster, not only here in DC, but also the region. How did I find out about Team Rubicon? Well, as you said, I spent a lot of time in the military. After the military, I joined the UN and traveled to some real garden spots, as you might want to say. And started seeing a bunch of disasters happening in our own country that needed some help. So I decided to come home and found an organization. It's a veteran-led organization, which started back in 2010 in Haiti after the earthquake there. And today we've grown to nearly 130,000 volunteers across the nation. And it's really, really inspiring to work with a group of like-minded individuals who are really just looking forward to supporting our neighbors who are experiencing their worst day after disasters.
Nice. Okay, so you teed us up very well. So Team Rubicon. I know that might not be a familiar term to a lot of us that are on this session. Can you just give us a little bit about what is Team Rubicon, and then one or two highlighting one or two misconceptions about Team Rubicon?
All right. So Team Rubicon, as I mentioned, started in 2010 after about 8 people, a couple of them veterans, a couple of them Jesuit priests, a couple of them just some disaster responders got together and decided to go down and support the relief efforts after the 2010 earthquake. They all landed and gathered together in the Dominican Republic, and they gathered their resources, and then they went across the border into Haiti, and they knew that that was their Rubicon. You know, because crossing that border, there was no coming back. You had made a commitment. And that's what our volunteers do today. We make that commitment. We cross our own Rubicons to say, hey, we're here. We are born in service. We are all service members. Wait a minute, let me restate that. We're not all service members, but we are all dedicated to service. Of the 130,000 members that we have in Team Rubicon, we're about 70% affiliated with the military. Either you're a veteran or you're a spouse, a family member of a veteran. We have a lot of first responders. And then we also have what we like to say, just really dedicated civilians who are really interested in supporting their communities. So it's a great mix of people, and I enjoy working with them. Some misconceptions. I would say that when we first started Team Rubicon, and over that first couple of years, we were still kind of gathering our footing. We wanted to figure out what space we wanted to be in community response and disaster response. And we started to begin to have this reputation of being the cowboys, right? And we go into a disaster and we just do our own thing, and see a need, we go over there and we fix it. But soon after, especially as we started to grow, we very quickly realized that we can't do this alone. We cannot be the cowboys. It really takes an organization of community members, of other disaster response organizations to work together to help with to help a community and those community homeowners and those community members after disaster strikes. And that's who we've become today. I think that we've learned as an organization, we've increased our level of skills and professionalism, I believe, and we know that we love working with our fellow VOAD members, our fellow community members, whenever we can.
Great. Okay. So we're going to do a little bit of rapid fire. I want to keep it engaging here. So you've touched on much of what I want to highlight today, but we're just going to go a little bit deeper in this one-on-one. The first we're going to talk about is how you align. The second that we're going to talk about is how you pivot. And then the third is how you collaborate. And as I mentioned, you've really raised all three of those things. And we're going to use the context of, I'm hearing you say disasters. And I think that is synonymous with crisis. And we have been, unfortunately, undergoing two crisis simultaneously within our city and also our country and our world, actually. And so, one, we're going to name it is COVID-19, our public health emergency that we've been undergoing. And then two, the social unrest that we've experienced. And so my next question is, in that context, how do you align with the leadership, particularly the local leadership here in the district? How did you pivot in light of all of that, what is going on, these crises? And then how do you collaborate? Would love to hear as a group, Team Rubicon, how you've done each of those things.
So thanks for pointing that out. And I really like the way that you've kind of broken that question out. So how do we align? Well, one of the first things that we do as Team Rubicon is we get in there and make friends, right? We become a part of the community. Why? Because we're already members of the community. I live right here in Washington, D.C. This is my home. So I'm a member of this community. And it's so funny that I started with Team Rubicon just about the time that Prem Jogi was trying to get me to be a member of the Cert team. So very similar activities there. So I'm also a member of the DC VOAD, and I collaborate with all of our other VOAD members, not only here in DC, but throughout our Northeast territory, right, which is basically from Virginia all the way up to Maine, okay? And so how have we pivoted during this particular crisis that you mentioned? And it's a multi-pronged crisis, as you said, with COVID, the pandemic, the the social injustice that we're all trying to find a voice here with. The pandemic in itself has really made us as an organization change the way that we look at how we serve our communities, right? Mm-hmm. So last year, could you find Team Rubicon doing food support operations? Not really. Maybe I would go down and support a community service activity on a weekend at the food bank or something like that. But now, today, because of the dramatic need that we see in our communities throughout the country, we are providing direct support to food banks. Here in DC, we supported Martha's Table for weeks. Right now, today, we're supporting the Capital Area Food Bank, and we're trying to set up something with Bread for the City. We also did direct food deliveries to elderly residents out in DC Ward 8 through the city councilman's efforts out there. And it's been a wonderful opportunity for us to get out and support directly the members of the community who are so affected by this pandemic.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll pause for comment and then keep going if you need.
No. This is all great. And I think the last thing that we wanted to talk you've spoken about is how we collaborate. Mm-hmm. How you collaborate.
Yeah, and so it's also really important for us to do that collaboration. And that means working with DC Serve office, working with the mayor's office, working with our fellow members on the DC VOAD to where we can make sure that we know what they're seeing in their part of the community, how other DC VOAD members are responding to the community, and figure out where our individual organization skills work best together. Because remember, we do a certain thing, other organizations do have specific training on things. So let's let them be expert in what they do, we'll be expert in what we do, and that way we can all come together to work together, to collaborate, to best meet the needs of the community.
Absolutely. And so I think one of the major distinctions about DC is that we don't often have these disasters in the way that they have around the country, right? Whew. But we do have what I would consider crises or things that are affecting our communities and our city, in some communities more than other, disproportionately. And so are there any lessons learned with these crises and with your experience that will pivot and kind of have you to collaborate in a different way moving forward to better support DC specifically in some of our needs and our crises?
One of the challenges that we faced here in DC, especially with our just the DC-based volunteers, is before, because you mentioned we don't respond to a lot of emergencies because we have a resilient city. right?
Right.
Our members are very resilient. The community services are usually spot on to, take care of that down tree or whatever. So we don't really need to respond in that way here in DC. What we had done before was we were supporting our members through community service activities, such as, like I said, we would support a food bank or work at DC Central Kitchen or some other types of community service activities. We had planned a lot of Earth Day activities that gets our members outside, but then the pandemic hit and we had to stop. So again, we had to pivot to figure out how we could best support the community in their needs. Some of the things that we're doing, as I mentioned, are some of these food bank operations. We supported an isolation support facility in Arlington. Basically, we took over a hotel and we were kind of providing the administration of folks who didn't have a place to go, but they had to remain isolated. So how do you do that, right? And these are some of the things that we're also doing. We're also trying to stay engaged with our members through virtual training opportunities, just like this on a Zoom call or whatever, which has also been a challenge. But that collaboration piece with the other VOADs, I think, is critically important so that we can determine, hey, what is the Cert team doing? What are the other organizations that are involved in the DC VOAD? What are they doing? And taking this opportunity to say, how are we going to be ready to respond to the next thing that comes?
Absolutely. Right? And then can you share how the power of diversity? You mentioned that everyone is not a veteran in your group and everyone is not a certain type of person. Can you tell the value and the impact of having some of that equity and inclusion and diversity in your group and how that will propel you to be successful in the future?
So I love that question, and thanks for asking, because one of the things that we say is everyone has a role. Know it. That's one of our primary sayings within our organization. Right. Everyone has a role, and all you need to do is step into the arena. It's one of those little sayings that we go by, and all you need to do is show a desire to support your community. Come on in. We'll find something for you to do. Right. COVID has changed the way that we operate. As you can imagine, we have a lot of members who may be 65 years old or older, right? Mm-hmm. And we follow the CDC guidelines to make sure that we're safe for our members, but more importantly, safe for our community as well. So that has actually, created some restrictions. We're not able to deploy our more experienced members, if you will, right? But there's still a role. There's still a way that they can provide. They can provide remote support, which I've done several times. I do a lot of, like I said, I do a lot of planning for our disaster response operations throughout the Northeast. Where do I do it? From right here with this backdrop, right? And I'm able to do that. And we do it through, assisted technology and these types of things. So that's really the important part is anybody can join Team Rubicon. And you'll have a desire, you'll have a something that you want to accomplish, whether it's getting out there and getting dirty, whether it's face-to-face interaction with members of your community, or whether it's some technology-based disaster mapping or helping run crisis cleanup or some other type of technological-based activity, right?
Okay, great. Is there anything else that you are wanting to share with our audience today that we did not cover?
So what I'd like to say is you mentioned that we have 900 members here in DC. Can I just say that even though we've been kind of locked down during this pandemic, at the beginning of the year, we had 600 members, right? And today we have 800 or 900 members, right? So that means that people are seeing what we do. People are seeing us provide over 7.3 million meals throughout this country. People are seeing that we've provided 29.5 million pounds of food. We've been running food banks and food distribution centers all throughout the nation. We're helping out the Navajo Nation out in Arizona, responding to tornadoes. I just got back from Dover, Delaware, where we were cutting down trees that were damaged to disaster response. Disasters don't stop. disasters we're going to have the Crossfire hurricane down in the Gulf coming up right now. And so it's important for members to continue to join organizations like DC Cert and some of these other wonderful organizations that we talked about today. But Team Rubicon, we're out there as well. If you're interested, I'll put our website on there, teamrubiconusa.org, and check us out.
Thank you. On behalf of our mayor, our chief service officer, I just want to say thank you for your support and your efforts. It really makes a difference. You've really teed us up very well. We're going to, if you can go to the next screen, we're going to share some more information about how to get involved with Team Rubicon. And thank you again for your time today, Mark.
Thank you.
Are there any questions that we should be addressing? I know that if you would put them in the chat, we'll be able to address them. Mark or either myself, any questions?
We've wowed them into silence.
I mean, that's the only thing I can take from it, Mark. I mean, to not have a question, I mean.
Hey, and if let me just say this, I know a lot of members a lot of participants in today's call are members of other organizations here, and especially the CERT team and some of the wonderful things that Miss Sharon Wise is doing out there. Give me a call, right? Or send me an email, and let's figure out how we can work together, in particular in terms of disaster, or in particular ways that we can support our communities. We're looking forward to it.
Nice. Great, great, great. Okay, I'm not seeing any additional questions in the chat. And I'm just going to check here.
And to Mr. Franco, yeah, shoot me a note, shoot me an email, and we'll get together.
Okay, perfect. Okay, now I am seeing a few questions, and we're going to just do, great. Okay, so you mentioned this a little bit, but how can Serve DC be a resource to list out various volunteer opportunities, and how can we better align and work with you with Team Rubicon? I think one thing, and I'm not going to answer the question for you, but I think what I love to see in this last crisis with COVID-19 is that we were always just a phone call or an email away. And so when, we saw a need with Martha's Table or some of the other food access issues, we were able to give you a call. But could you share, how do we better align like that, and how do we better work together to kind of address the needs of our city?
Yeah, so I'm always kind of thinking about, what's the next thing? I'm a planner, right? So what is the next thing? And eventually we're going to get a better handle of how we're responding to this COVID crisis, whether it's through development of a vaccine or setting policies that actually address public health issues or whatever. And that's going to allow us to pivot again back to our core capabilities of disaster response. One of the ways that we can do that, one, is preparedness. Right, is to continue through that training. So some of the things that Prem is doing with the DC Cert team is just absolutely amazing. Some of the things that, we heard from Sharon Wise and some of the other folks on this call, talking about some of the things that they are reaching out to the youth to make sure that they know what to do to prepare in response to disasters or something that happens in your community. So I think that is just absolutely wonderful. One of the things that I look forward to is to build a much closer relationship with the DC Cert team. So when the next storm blows through and a tree falls on somebody's house, right, blocking their access or whatever, give us a call, or as Prem mentioned, Rock Creek Park floods into several people's basements or whatever. Team Rubicon volunteers, we could probably be there within 24 hours to support that need if it was an unmet need that the city wasn't able to handle, whatever. And then have more additional opportunities to work with DCH SEMA especially from a emergency management standpoint. All of our members have at least ICS 100 and 700, and then other folks who are involved in planning have higher levels of incident management training up through ICS 300 and 400. So that's also very helpful as well. So those are some of the things that I would like us to see to become even closer and more integrated into our DC community.
Okay, and one last question, and this one aligns very well. How do you, when you have these awesome volunteers and you have them, they're doing great work, how do you sustain those relationships, and how do you show appreciation for your volunteers so that they are motivated to continue to do the great work that they do?
Oh my goodness.
Especially in that one caveat, how are you doing that? I hear someone saying, how are you doing that, especially in this virtual platform? How are you making sure that your volunteers feel engaged and appreciated?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, and it's interesting because so many of our members are, you know, I don't want to say so many of our members, but a good percentage of them are 65 and older. So we've really had to put restrictions on their ability to serve their community. So we've had to, as you say, we've had to pivot and figure out how we can keep them engaged. So we do a lot of virtual training. Virtual events. We'll call them virtual campfires or coffee with a gray shirt. We all call ourselves gray shirts, even though I'm wearing a black shirt today. Anyway, these are some of the things that we're harnessing technology through Microsoft Teams or whatever to have meetings, or Blue Jeans, which is another way of meeting with folks. But then again, we're also, let me just say this. So we've had so many new members join Team Rubicon. A lot of them haven't had a chance to, quote, earn your shirt, right? Which is, we give each member a gray shirt that says Team Rubicon on it. It has a little block where they can write their names on it. But you normally get that in person because you've shown up for your first operation. So now people are signing up, and then signing up for Team Rubicon, and then volunteering to go support the Capital Area Food Bank, but we haven't given them a shirt. So now we're having to mail them a shirt, make sure that they can represent Team Rubicon correctly, and then also make them feel welcome to be a part of this new organization that they've joined. You know, so it's really incumbent upon us, the folks who are trying to lead this effort, to do a lot more outreach to these new, particularly for our newest members, so that they feel welcomed.
Absolutely. And I can share from Serve DC's and our engagement with volunteers, we're doing very similar things. We are making sure that we're staying connected. We're doing some data gathering. So, you know, I would encourage folks to make a quick survey. Think about some of your data points that you're hoping to capture from, even if it's just your volunteer experience or some of their roadblocks or things that they're experiencing. That's certainly one way to do it. Again, you mentioned anything that's capacity building. These webinars are a great platform to have. They're accessible. We can see each other's faces. We can feel the love and the connection. But then also you can offer valuable information. So while we're not able to maybe do as much, there's also room to really shoring up our volunteer base and making sure that they're feeling prepared. And then finally, it would really be making those connections, making sure that, you know, folks are having time to connect with one another via email, or as you mentioned, a coffee, or, you know, something virtually. It's a great time to be able to do that. And so that's really what we're focusing on with our volunteer base, is making sure they have those skills, they're feeling connected and supported during this time.
Indeed. Yeah. Great words.
Great. Okay, so I am going to wrap up things there. Again, thank you, Mark, so much for your participation today and your leadership within our community. I think we will obviously see more of each other as we work together collaboratively. Thank you.
Yeah, look forward to it. Thank you so much. This is a great
opportunity.
Thank
you. Perfect. All right, we're going to move forward with our events and initiatives. really enjoyed our time today, and we have some engaging things that are coming up in the future with Serve DC. Please stay connected with us. We'll start with our upcoming events and initiatives. We have our 9/11 Day of Service. Please stay connected with us via our Instagram and social media, Facebook and Twitter. We have some exciting initiatives. September the 11th is the first day of service. We also have our DC Startup Week, which is September the 14th through the 18th. And we have a panel that we will be hosting for that. The mayor is hosting her Maternal and Infant Health Summit on September the 15th. And that is also being hosted on a digital platform. Please stay connected and join in for that important conversation. And then we also have our Spirit of Service Awards, which is coming in November. Stay tuned for that. And finally, we also have our public-private partnership town hall that will be coming in January. So we really look forward to staying connected with you. And we, as our Chief Service Officer mentioned, we really rely on you all a lot to make things happen within Serve DC, to make our communities better. How to engage with us? Certainly, we would love for you, no pun intended, to join us for our Cert team. For more information, please go to dc.cert@dc.gov to get more involved in our community, to be prepared, to be resilient. We need that. We are offering it within. You can learn more about the cohorts that we have coming, but we are also making sure that all wards are involved in Cert in our outreach and can join in. Also, our snow team. It's hard to believe, but snow team will be around the corner. It's a great way to join in, to volunteer, sign up on our portal to learn more about how you can help a neighbor during our snow season. And then we also are proud to announce our new volunteer and donations portal, which is live now. Go ahead and search there and take a look and see how you can be more involved in a lot of initiatives that require volunteer support. And then consider becoming a commissioner. If you go to that site right there, we have a few vacancies now, but as you heard from Commissioner Williams, it's a great opportunity to use your voice and your power to impact service throughout our city. Again, we encourage you to stay connected with us. We have all of the social media platforms, and we look forward to having engaging conversations and to learning more about what you do in our city and to help us serve DC. All right, we've come to the end of our program. Again, this is just the first. We have 3 additional sessions that we are excited to host. The next one rather, is September the 1st. All of them are at 11 a.m. to 12:30. We have September the 15th and September 29th. Again, this is a great information for volunteers, community-based leaders, and also our nonprofit leadership and staff. Our next session will feature United Way's Rosie Allen Herring in a one-on-one with our Chief Service Officer, also Kim Ford, Danielle Holly, Ken Keto, and Catherine Dixon. And we'll be talking about matching and maximizing the professional skills of volunteers. Again, another riveting conversation about how to support and maximize our volunteer cohorts here in the district. Again, thank you for joining us today. We really value your time and your participation, and we look forward to seeing you. Again, we are really encouraging everyone to lean in, to communicate, to support one another as we work together to recover from all that is affecting us as a community. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you at the next sessions. Thank you.